will admit, coming here tonight wasn't the easiest thing for me. There have been a few times this past week when all I wanted to do was just to curl up with a good book or our dogs and never leave the house again.
Hillary Clinton speaking tonight publicly for the first time since she conceded the presidential race to Donald Trump. She was honored by the Children's Defense Fund, an organization she worked for back in the 1970s. Let's bring correspondent Kristen Welker back into the conversation. She was inside the room in Washington tonight as the former Secretary of State spoke. Kristen?
It was striking, Brian. Secretary Clinton's speech was filled with reflection, also some raw emotion. Remember, this is really the first time that we've heard from her since that concession speech. We saw her once last Thursday when she ran into a hiker who Instagrammed out a photo of her. So this was really her first chance not only to speak to the audience there tonight at the Children's Defense Fund, but to Democrats more broadly and to all of her supporters and Republicans. And her message was really about the importance of continuing to fight. Take a listen to a little bit of what she had to say.
I know many of you are deeply disappointed about the results of the election. I am too, more than I can ever express. I draw hope and sustenance from another person who influenced my life and still does every day, my mother. I've talked about her difficult childhood. She was abandoned by her parents when she was just 8 years old. And I dream of going up to her and sitting next to her and taking her in my arms and saying, look at me and listen. You will survive. You will have a family of your own. 3 children. And as hard as it might be to imagine, your daughter will grow up to be a United States Senator, represent our country as Secretary of State, and win more than 62 million votes for President of the United States.
And Brian, of course, what is so notable about that moment where you saw her really get choked up, I've been covering her for the past 2 years. She's probably gotten choked up 2 other times. So clearly this loss is still very fresh for her. She is already back in New York tonight. No word yet on what her next moves will be, but she's making it very clear she's going to be a part of the conversation and echoing what we are hearing from Democrats more broadly, which is that they've got to pick themselves up and move on and figure out what went wrong and how to move beyond that for the next race.
I will admit, coming here tonight wasn't the easiest thing for me.